Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
The Guyana government denies political interference in police investigations into opposition members. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Wednesday, March 8th from the CMC News Center in Bridgetown. I'm Ricardo Roberts. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Accusations and denials of political interference after several government ministers and officials were arrested and questioned on Tuesday by the Special Organized Crime Unit, SOCU. Police are investigating a controversial multi-million-dollar land deal, and among those arrested was former President Bharat Jagdeo. Speaking to reporters after being released, he said the actions of the law enforcement officials were politically motivated.
They asked me several questions relating to the Pradoville transaction, and I made a short statement because they asked me questions about my official, in my official capacity, and I have immunities on those, so I refused to answer those questions. So we can expect with this the vindictive nature of this government that maybe charges would be laid in the future, and when those are laid, we'll contest them in court. Nevertheless, we did not resist arrest. I came down here, I said, you're trying, you asking me questions in my private capacity or my official capacity at that time? Because if you're doing that, you're going to breach the veil of immunity that I have for official acts. And that will have far-reaching consequences in this country, because anything that Granger does or any subsequent president in his official capacity to would be challenged.
But in a statement issued on Wednesday, the David Granger administration dismissed the allegations of political vendetta and harassment. It said SOCU is operating independently and without any interference or direction, and the investigations have been meticulous and fair. The government also insisted that the allegations against the former ministers and officials are immensely serious. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, now leader of the main opposition, New Democratic Party, Dr. Godwin Friday, has described as a wonderful victory the decision by the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court of Appeal to reinstate two petitions filed by his party challenging results in the last general election. The court ruled Tuesday that a June 2016 decision by High Court Judge Justice Brian Cottle to throw out the NDP's petition was tainted by bias. It ordered that the petitions be reinstated for hearing before a different judge. Citing electoral irregularities in the December 2015 poll, the NDP candidates for Central Leeward, Ben Exeter, and North Windward, Lauren Batiste, had asked the local court to declare them winners in those districts or order fresh elections. In a call to local radio station from St. Lucia, where the appeal was heard, Friday said while the battle had not yet been won, it was a time to celebrate democracy.
What's more important is that the Court of Appeal has vindicated the position of Batiste and Exeter, and of course all the hopes and dreams of the people who support their application, the supporters of the Democratic Party, but more importantly the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines who are looking forward to justice and democracy in their country, that they have been vindicated in that the petitions are now alive again and they can proceed on their merits to adjudication.
But Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves insists the NDP scored no political victory. He said it was just a legal skirmish that has been settled, and he accepts the court's decision. The woes of Trinidad and Tobago state-owned oil company Petrotrin are much more than the $4.2 billion in losses recorded over the last 5 years. It also owes billions in taxes, and on Tuesday it was also accused of breaking the law.
Petrotrin is in clear violation of the laws of Trinidad and Tobago.
With Petrotrin's financial position much worse than originally thought, one opposition senator believes the company is guilty of acting illegally. This after Acting Energy Minister Colm Imbert revealed that the state-owned oil company owes the Board of Inland Revenue 1.78 billion TT dollars.
What steps or measures are being taken by the government to ensure that Petrotrin meets its financial obligations?
However, Minister Imbert pointed the finger at the former UNC administration. According to him, it was during the 5-year term that non-collection of petroleum profits began. He says in 2013 the then government failed to collect 196 million, 1 billion the next year, and 566 million in 2015.
I can say that under this government, Petrotrin has resumed once again to start paying taxes to the Treasury, which it was allowed not to do under the UNC government.
In response to questions from Senator Wade Mark, Mr. Imbert admitted it is not a simple matter, but one that government is addressing. Yesterday, he informed the lower house of parliament that Petrotrin's real debt is closer to $4.2 billion rather than the $600 million previously reported.
This PNM government only just discovered that the UNC government was hiding losses at Petrotrin for 5 years, amounting to $4.2 billion, that we now have to bring to book and deal with that very adverse consequence. I am unable to answer how we're going to deal with this financial gift given to us by the other side at this time.
Petrotrin also owes the state $1.2 billion in royalties and taxes. This is separate from the $4 billion in losses that were previously undisclosed.
And that report from Kamal Georges of CNC3 News in Trinidad and Tobago. And the Guyana government will soon be taking several critical pieces of legislation to the National Assembly to regularize the country's emerging oil and gas sector. The legislation will provide for the establishment of an independent oil and gas agency. Minister of Natural Resources Raphael Trotman says while there is a Guyana Geology and Mines Commission, there's need for an agency dedicated to oil and gas.
He has had a historical focus on alluvial and hard rock mining, and we need to reorient our minds towards petroleum, which is a completely different form of mining. And so the idea is that we would move in tandem with the rest of the world and have a separate regulatory agency.
Additionally, Mr. Trotman said that there is a draft Sovereign Wealth Fund bill. The drafting of that bill was done by the Commonwealth Secretariat. It is reportedly with the Finance Minister and is also set to be laid in the National Assembly soon.
We have regulations developed as well for health, safety, and environmental issues, and we have also crafted what is known as a policy for what is known as local content. How do we get Guyanese engaged, involved, trained, and inserted into the industries?
Meanwhile, ExxonMobil country manager Mr. Jeff Simmons says the company is confidently going forward with its offshore work here.
And that report from Royden James of HGP TV. The United Nations on Tuesday reiterated calls for reduction of greenhouse gases. The call came at the 5th Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in the Americas, which is underway in Montreal. The 3-day meeting is being held under the theme Resilience for All. CMC's Nicole Best is covering the meeting and has this report.
Head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Robert Glasser, maintains that climate change remains inextricably linked to the challenges of disaster risk reduction and calls on participants not to lose sight of the link. The UN representative urged the gathering to adopt a regional action plan that would help local and regional governments strengthen their efforts to mitigate disasters.
Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is arguably the single most urgent global disaster risk treatment, because without those efforts, our other efforts to reduce many hazards and the risks those pose to communities will be overwhelmed over the longer term.
The Sendai Framework is an international agreement adopted in 2015 with the aim of achieving a substantial reduction of disaster risk over the next 15 years. Glasser said adopting and implementing the Sendai Framework is even more important with the rapid urbanization taking place across the region. He said Latin America and the Caribbean is the most urbanized region of the world, as over 50% of its population live in urban areas, adding that the percentage could increase to 90 within a few decades.
The strengthening of the Making Cities Resilient campaign in the Americas will ensure that both the Sendai Framework and this new urban agenda are reflected in local efforts to reduce disaster risk, leveraging the fact that something like 15%, actually over 50% of the 3,500 cities that have committed to this campaign are located here in the Americas.
In his welcome remarks to the delegates, Canada's Minister for Public Safety, Ralph Goodale, told the gathering they need to make good use of their time together to move forward on a robust regional action plan that can increase the open exchange of research and technology that can save lives worldwide.
A plan that is grounded in the Sendai Framework's guiding principles that can help us strengthen how we organize, prepare, budget, and govern, and how we engage critical partners like those invaluable volunteers. And a plan that can help us use our collective influence to increase the numbers of countries and territories and organizations that do have strategies in place to reduce the risk of disasters.
Some of the topics to be discussed over the next 3 days include understanding the risks in the Americas, empowerment of women and girls and gender equality in disaster risk reduction, and high-risk populations as agents of change for disaster risk reduction. In Montreal, Canada, Nicole Best, CMC News.
Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, the state of Caribbean women in focus on International Women's Day. Stay with us.
At the 50th edition of Antigua Sailing Week, not a sailor, not a problem. Chase the race from the best beach locations and party in the ocean. On our beaches, a different one each day. Take a drink, take another, hula, play, dance in the sand. Dance to reggae, to soca, to the beat of your own drum under the moonlight. 7 beach days and party nights. Come play at the 50th edition of Antigua Sailing Week, April 29th to May 7th, 2017. Are you up for the challenge?
Straight out of the bodacious and beautiful culture of the Caribbean comes a music and talent competition like no other. Brace yourself for the exciting, entertaining, extraordinary, and new reality docuseries, Icon of the Islands. The story begins in the breathtaking backdrop of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Every year, this is where a wide and diverse range of contestants of all ages and backgrounds audition for a wildly popular and prominent local talent competition. And the ultimate goal for each contestant is to win.
I already have my favorites, but my favorites may not prevail tonight.
Some moments will bring performers to their knees, while some performances will bring fans to their feet. Get ready to see which star will be the last one shining in the spotlight as the stars align this season on Icon of the Islands.
As International Women's Day is recognized Wednesday, the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, reported that women in the region have made significant strides in recent years. It noted that in less than a generation, the share of legislative and parliamentary seats held by women in Latin America and the Caribbean has risen to 25%, a figure that it says is surpassed only by Nordic countries. And with an average of 25% more women than men enrolled in tertiary education, it is now the region with the third highest level of participation of women in universities. The IDB said that Women's labor participation is also noteworthy, with 53% of women in the Latin America and Caribbean countries engaged in the labor market, exceeding the global average of 50%. But it notes that challenges persist. It says there is still a wage gap between men and women, ranging between 10% and 40% difference in pay for equal work. The IDB also highlighted the scourge of violence against women. Now, on the issue of violence against women, the Commonwealth Secretariat on Wednesday launched a new program to help member states reduce the rates of domestic violence. The initiative is dubbed Peace in the Home, Ending Domestic Violence Together. In a Skype interview with CMC News, Commonwealth Secretary General Baroness Patricia Scotland said while women are the main victims, domestic violence abuse does not respect gender, location, or social or economic status. She says the Anti-Domestic Violence Initiative is part of a wider program that focuses on building peace within the Commonwealth.
I think it starts in our homes. If our children don't learn that violence is not an acceptable way to resolve disputes in the home, they tend to take that message outside of the home. So I think this is an opportunity for us to choose to assist, to help change, and to help structure a new world. And we are here in the Commonwealth pulling together all our resources to see how we can help our member states to have the best resource available to them to do what they all want to do, and that is to reduce the level of violence and abuse in all of our countries.
Baroness Scotland says the initiative will build a coalition of governments, businesses, and other organizations and will seek to introduce uniform best practices among member states to address domestic violence.
We're also looking at what works in different countries, because unfortunately, as you'll be only too well aware, with this 1 in 3 women across the world who are affected by domestic violence, that means that there'll be women in all of our countries who are suffering this even as we speak. And so the question is, how can we pool together the things that each of us can do to make a difference?
Meanwhile, there's been a strong call for Caribbean countries to address the high gender pay gap. Head of Office at UN Women, Tony Broadber, told a panel discussion in Barbados on Wednesday that the average pay gap in the Caribbean and Latin America is 19% compared to 24% globally. In Barbados, that figure stands at 25%.
The Caribbean Development Bank also in their country gender assessments noted that academic overachievement of girls compared to boys has not translated into higher female labor force participation and earnings, especially in the sectors that contribute the most to GDP. Tourism is one of those sectors, in Barbados especially. And in 2004, it's a bit old, and I was trying to find a new one, but this is the only one that's there. But that study showed that 60% of the people working in that industry are women. However, the women are not in leadership or decision making. And they're usually the first to be let go in times of financial strain because they're in the clerical and housekeeping parts of the work, which are critical parts of the work. But do we pay that as if it is critical?
And ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies bowling coach says still much at stake in the final ODI against England. Stay with us. Sport is next.
At the 50th edition of Antigua Sailing Week, not a sailor, not a problem. Chase the rays from the best beach locations and party in the ocean. On our beaches, a different one each day. Take a drink, take another, hula, play, dance in the sand. Dance to reggae, to soca, to the beat of your own drum under the moonlight. 7 beach days and party nights. Come play at the 50th edition of Antigua Sailing Week, April 29th to May 7th, 2017. Are you up for the challenge?
Awards for Excellence invites nominations for its next awards cycle in the categories Arts and Letters, Science and Technology, Public and Civic Contributions, and Entrepreneurship. Join the growing college of distinguished laureates from throughout the region we've honored in the last decade. Visit www.answercaribbeanawards.com for forms and instructions. Nominations close on March 31st.
Have you or someone you know been diagnosed with diabetes? If so, it is important that you know about Glucerna. Glucerna is a nutritional supplement for people with diabetes and contains Carb Steady, which helps minimize blood sugar spikes. Manage your diabetes with Glucerna. Glucerna, nutrition for people with diabetes, designed for you.
West Indies has already conceded the three-match one-day series to England, but bowling coach Roddy Estwick has warned there is still much at stake in Thursday's final encounter at Kensington Oval. West Indies currently languish at number 9 in the international ODI rankings, one spot outside the automatic qualifying place for the 2019 World Cup in England. If they fail to make the top 8 by the cutoff point of September 30, they will be forced to go through a qualifying tournament involving ICC associate and affiliate teams.
We're still playing for points. We're still trying to qualify for the World Cup. So every game is very, very important to us. So we still have to go out here and look to win the game. Even though the series is gone, it doesn't matter. We need points and we need them badly. So we've just got to come out on Thursday, put a good performance. We're not that far away from England. If you look at the two games, we didn't play the big moments very well. But once we can get those critical moments right, I'm sure we can come up with a win.
Now, with the most of their experienced stars missing, West Indies have fielded an inexperienced lineup with rookies like Jason Mohammed, Shea Hope, Jonathan Carter and Craig Brathwaite carrying the burden of the batting. Combined, the quartet has managed just 38 ODIs, with captain Jason Holder the most experienced player in the current side with 51 matches. Now, Estwick pointed out that West Indies are in a rebuilding phase involving young players, but he said once the learning is complete, he expects the side to challenge.
These boys are 23, 24. I mean, like I said, we haven't got 173 one-day games between us, so they're learning every day. The key thing is to learn, and the key thing for us is to keep teaching them, because once teaching takes place, then learning takes place. So that's what we've got to keep doing. They'll make mistakes and they'll be inconsistent because of the experience, but as they continue to grow, I'm sure we'll be right.
Meanwhile, Coach Estwick is ruing the loss of speedster Shannon Gabriel for the final ODI, but he said the Trinidadian's absence could provide an opportunity to expose other talent.
It's going to be a big loss with Shannon, because he's led the line very well with a new ball. He's gone out there and he's been aggressive, but it's good to give people opportunities as well. It gives you a chance to see where you're stuck at, to see how deep your cupboard is or how many players you've got in reserve. So if Miguel gets the opportunity on Thursday, I'm sure he's not going to let anybody down. He's been around the team now for a year or so, so it's just another addition to the squad.
Still in cricket, West Indies women will open their World Cup campaign in June against arch rivals Australia women in a repeat of last year's T20 World Cup final in India. The Caribbean side and the Aussies also met in the final of the last 50 overs World Cup in India 4 years ago, when the Aussies picked up their 6th title. There are 2 of 8 teams clashing in the round-robin preliminaries of the tournament, which will see 28 matches played from June 24 to July 23 in England. All preliminary games and the semi-finals will be played across Bristol, Taunton, Leicester and Derby, with the final schedule for historic Lords in London. The West Indies squad was one of 4 automatic qualifiers, along with Australia, England and New Zealand, and enter the tournament as one of the favourites to take the title. Legendary former West Indies opening duo Desmond Haynes and Gordon Greenidge will headline a celebrity event hosted by Cayman Cricket next week. The Legends Reunited event will see Haynes and Greenidge playing in a fundraising golf tournament on March 17 and then attending a gala dinner for the following day as guests of honor. Cricket Cayman is using the event to kickstart its development plan, with the funds from the International Cricket Council and government proving insufficient to fuel domestic programs. They are hoping to raise funds through private events. Haynes and Greenwich formed the most successful opening partnership in Test history, amassing over 6,000 runs and 1,600-run partnerships. Switching to football now, Jamaica's Reggae Boys will lock horns with reigning champions Mexico in a replay of the 2015 final after both teams were installed in Group C of the 2017 CONCACAF Gold Cup on Tuesday. The Reggae Boys will open their campaign against the Dutch side on July 9 at the Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego, and then take on El Salvador in the final preliminary outing on July 16 at the Alamodome in San Antonio. Jamaica was one of the outstanding sides in the 2015 tournament, playing unbeaten in the preliminaries to top their group before edging their French Caribbean neighbors Haiti in the quarterfinals and stunning hosts United States in the semi-finals. Staying with football, Trinidad and Tobago's Soca Warriors are pumped up to face neighbors Barbados this Friday in Port of Spain. They continue their preparations for the upcoming 2018 World Cup qualifiers later this month. Head coach Dennis Lawrence says he had no challenge selecting the final 11 for the Barbados clash. He explained that international-based defender Sion Power will miss Friday's encounter.
It wasn't that difficult because the numbers we've got at the moment is actually the numbers that we're going to go in with. Obviously, Sion is somebody that has just come back from Thailand. He's now with the club at the moment. We've invited him in to come in and be part of the group now. He's obviously not ready for competitive football at that level, so we're going to leave Sion out and we're going to go with the next 20 outfield players. We're going to go with 2 goalkeepers, and the idea is to make sure that everybody gets a good portion of the game, because I think it's only fair the work they've been done to give them the opportunity to present themselves and say to myself and say to Trinidad and Tobago they're ready for selection come the 24th and the 28th.
The side was due to meet Suriname on the same day of the friendly, but plans changed after the South American side pulled out unexpectedly. But Lawrence says he expects his men to play Barbados with the same level of intensity.
It'll be exciting for the players. I think the work that we've done over the time should have prepared them for a game in this magnitude. So I'm looking forward to it and see how much the boys have taken on board over the last couple of weeks we've been working. From a commitment point, they've given enough focus and attention to the work that we've tried to do. Now it's all about execution, and as I said, it's for the players to go out now and just concentrate on the work that we've done, and now it's time to deliver.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Newsline is brought to you by the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Round Hay Pharmacy now has 2 locations to fill your prescriptions promptly and efficiently. Our branch at One Accord Plaza is open daily, including Sundays and bank holidays. Also, check out our new drive-through location at Warren's Healthcare Complex in Michael, the first and only drive-through pharmacy in Barbados. For more information, call Round Hay One Accord Plaza at 421-7863 and our new drive-through branch at Warren's in Michael at 424-5574.
Again, the major developments of this day. The Guyana government denies political interference in police investigations into opposition members. And in sport, West Indies bowling coach Roddy Estwick says there is still much at stake in the final ODI against England, even though the Caribbean side has already lost the series. That's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sports round the clock, log on to CanadaNews.com. We'll be back here again tomorrow. But from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good night.